In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to add sounds to our level. Alright, there's a couple of ways that we can add sound to a level. The first way is to find it in our content browser, and then we can go to our sounds folder here, and you'll see that we have several different sounds that we can choose from, and I want to go to the ambient loops package here, and I'm going to use the sounds that are in here. Now, we could select a sound inside of our content browser, and if you double click on it, you'll get a preview of what that sound looks like. Now, I know that you can't hear that because we're not capturing the audio, but you can go through and you can double click on those and get kind of a preview of what that sounds like. Now, you can add sounds a couple of different ways. Let's go ahead and I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to find one that I want to use, this swamp background here. And if I double click on that, I can get a preview of it. And if I have it selected, I can click and drag that into the scene. Or what I could do is I could right click and then have it say add ambient sound. Now you'll notice that I have a couple of different ones. I have this add ambient sound, which is a regular one, and then I have this add ambient sound movable. Okay. Now what we want is just the simple one, and this is going to just allow us to place in a regular sound. It's not going to have any sort of interactivity with that sound. Alright, so let's go ahead and just add that, and it's going to be the exact same thing. Now, if you're previewing your sound, ambients tend to loop, and if it doesn't stop, you can always right click on it, and then you can tell it to stop sound. Alright, so let's go ahead and close this out, and really quickly, I want to show you something really quick. I want you to notice something about this sound node that we have in here. If I double click on this, it's going to bring up my sound properties, and I have my audio, okay, and I can expand this out, and you'll notice that the only control that I have over this is really the volume multiplier and its pitch multiplier. Now I also have the high frequency gain, but these are the two common parameters that you're going to be messing with sounds. So volume obviously is going to increase the volume of that sound, and pitch is going to either slow the sound down or speed it up, okay, making it sound like it's lower or making it sound like it's higher. Alright, so that's the major controls that you have with these types of light. Now what happens if I don't necessarily want this sound to expel itself across the whole area or the whole level? What if I only want it in a specific area? Well, let's go ahead and open up our content browser. This is called a sound cue, and you know that it's a sound cue because it is represented in orange. Okay. Now you'll also see it here with this teal blue color, okay, the sound cue. Now I also have the same sound in a sound node wave. So what's the difference? Let's go ahead of our scene here, and I'm going to bring in the sound node wave. Now notice the coloring that I have with this one. It's blue. If I double click on this and bring up my properties, I can go to my ambient sound or my ambient properties here, my ambient sound simple. Here I have attenuation and things like that. Now attenuation, what that's going to do is it's going to allow fall off, and I can adjust those values here. So if I want this to have a sound value of 1000 or 100, you can see that that is increasing and decreasing this inner sphere. Now the outer sphere is going to be your radius max. Okay, so anything that is inside of this minimum radius is going to be full sound. Now anything in between is going to fall off and get lower and more silent or quiet as it gets to the edge of that sound cue or that radius there. Alright. Now once you've done that, you can go ahead and leave this in. So normally with something like this, I'm going to take it to like 500. Something like this, if I were outside, I would probably hear that background noise a little more. Okay, now as I go inside, I might hear it a little bit less. So we might want to adjust this to something like 250. Okay, something like that, and then I'll take my radius, max radius, to something like 2000. Okay, and that's going to go just outside my building. So if I get out here toward the back, that's probably going to fall off. Might go to something around 1500. to where we can just barely hear it when we're inside. Now obviously I would put maybe another one along the back here, or something like that to kind of overlap, so as we come out it begins to grow in volume, okay, that sort of thing. But you can position these sound cues or sound waves however you see fit. Now normally what I would do is use a sound cue because I want it to be over the entire level itself. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you an example of how to use those sounds and the differences between the two. Alright, now if you want to have this play in your editor, you need to have this real-time turned on. Now right now it doesn't sound like that's actually doing anything, so you may have to play the sound, okay, and then you should be able to get that in your editor. If I turn this off, that should turn off there. Okay. Now for some reason it's not acting as it should. I'm not necessarily sure of why that sound is not updating properly, but we can definitely hear it whenever we play in our viewport. Okay. So now that we've added these sounds in, I want to just add in a couple more. So I've got my ambient sound, and now what I want to do is I want to add in some sounds for like my machinery and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my content browser. I'm going to right click on this and tell it to stop sound, so that way we don't have that going on. And now what I want to do is I want to kind of look around in here and see what I have. Okay, so some of the ambient sounds that I have, let's go ahead and look at sound cues. Well, let's turn that off there, because that's going to get rid of our sound waves as well. Let's look in some of our different settings here. So I have gameplay, some different sounds for that. Okay, we can look into some of these other ones. Ambient loops. Here we go. I have machines. Okay, so machines, I have like a broken machine. Double click on that to see what that sounds like. Okay. So I have a machine engine. And we have a couple of different sounds. You can preview those, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this right over the top of this guy right here. And then if I want to adjust its properties, I'll double click on that and change its radius for its attenuation. So I'm going to go to, let's do 200 at first just to see what that gives us. And that's a pretty good value for this piece of machinery. And then my outer radius, I'm going to drop that down to maybe about 500. Okay, because I really don't want to be able to hear that all that much. Okay, so 500 is going to be a pretty good value for us. And we can put that inside of objects. It doesn't really matter. It is going to be a little difficult to grab that, though, if you put that inside of an object. Okay, so now that I have that, let me go ahead and just pull it out front here. Now notice that you'll be able to hear that inside of here. So you might want to drop that down just a little bit more. So 400, I mean, you'll still be able to hear it as you pass by, okay, and then when you leave out the back, okay, you won't be able to hear that any longer. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and copy this so we can hold down Alt, bring that over to this side. Okay, we can hear that there. Alright, so that's how we can add some simple sounds into our scene. If you want to preview what that sounds like, just simply hit play in editor. Okay, and I can hear those sounds. I know you can't. I apologize for that, but we can play in our editor, and I can just barely hear those machines. Might want to pump that up just a little bit more. But it does give me kind of an idea of what this is going to sound like in here. And I might want to bring that volume down on that ambient sound as well. Okay, so just kind of play around with those sounds. At this point, we're getting into things that are a little more fun to play around with, and experimentation and things like that. Alright, so now that we are finished with our sound and we've kind of brought this to life, now what we want to do is I want to get into the last bit of this course by showing you how to add in a little bit of gameplay functionality just to get you started. Alright, so I'll see you in the next lesson.